Hello and welcome to the 50th episode of the Obsessed Movie Man. I've got to say, I'm impressed that I've made it this far. I wanted to do something special and review a bad movie. Normally I talk about films that I really like, but I thought it would be really fun to review something bad, until I realized I had to sit down and watch it, and, well, Son of the Mask. Where do I even start? Never before have I had such displeasure in watching a movie, which is debatable if this load of crap even qualifies as one. Watching this movie is like sitting in a high school class filled with jocks. It's both boring and filled with so many dumb jackasses. It's as if Pee Wee Herman and Tommy Wiseau came together to create a children's movie, but took a ton of drugs before writing the script. But no matter what I compare this abomination to, no matter how much I eloquently try to describe this wretch, the only way I can possibly describe it is to go into excruciating detail into why this is the worst film I have ever seen. Yeah, I can see you rolling your eyes right now. Really? This is the worst film you've ever seen? Why not Batman and Robin? Why not Transformers 2? Why not The Room? You know what? Those movies might be bad, but at least I saw some kind of effort put into those films. Batman and Robin is bad, but I can tell it tried two things: look stylistic and sell toys. Transformers 2 is dumb, racist, and misogynistic, but it was designed to appeal to teenage boys, have impressive effects, and sell some toys. The Room is extraordinarily awful, but you know what? At least the director, writer, producer, star, alien, Tommy Wiseau, was determined to get his horrible story told. Even if he didn't sell any toys. Son of the Mask, though? This goddamn film feels like there was very little passion put into it. No one probably wanted to make it. No one thought that this was going to turn out good. And what's for damn certain, no one had any idea how to write one funny line in a comedy. But before I even start with this disaster, we need to start at the beginning. And I mean the very beginning. The Mask was based on the Dark Horse comic of the same name, and you might be thinking that it's just as kooky and silly as the film version. Hell no! This comic was dark, violent, gory, and disturbing as can be. The Mask was a homicidal psychopath. To be more clear, everyone who wore the mask turned into a psychopath, and that's because Stanley Ipkiss was not the only one who wore it, and is not in the original comic that long. There are similar sequences from the film version, but they're all completely toned down. But we're not here to talk about the comic book. We're here to talk about the film versions. The first film was going to be a horror film, but it was soon decided to become a comedy, with Stanley Ipkiss being played by Jim Carrey. The effects were over the top and cartoonish, which went with both the tone and the character Jim Carrey played. It was zany, stylish, and above all else, funny. It was a funny movie. It was also a success, and ideas of a sequel began. There was even a contest held in Nintendo Power magazine for the winner to have a role in the film. Eventually, Jim Carrey said he had no interest in returning, saying he didn't want to play his characters more than once. I guess he got rid of that belief years later since he came back for Dumb and Dumber 2. But whatever, Carrey was out. Who could possibly replace him? I know! Jamie Kennedy! Here we go. So many years later, the mask is on display in an Edge City museum, and Dr. Newman from the first film shows off his favorite section, the Hall of Norse Mythology. It turns out that the mask was the god Loki's tool for mischief, and it was lost upon the mortal world, and he is now tasked to retrieve it. And coincidentally, Loki is on this tour. Insert Tom Hiddleston joke here. I have two questions already, director and screenwriters who are not watching this review. First, wasn't Dr. Newman a psychiatrist in the first film? He knew about masks and Norse mythology, but he seemed to be more like a psychiatrist. His book was about how masks were metaphors of the human psyche, and he even offered to make an appointment for Ipkiss. Second, the first film stated, and in the same scene with Newman mind you, that Loki was banished into the mask itself. This is seemingly confirmed in a deleted scene for the film where Vikings bury the mask in Edge City, basically saying Loki resides in it. So what the hell is Loki doing out of it? You have two screw-ups movie, and in the first damn scene, that's quite an accomplishment. So Loki gets upset by Newman's tour and decides to steal the mask. Realizing it's a fake, he gets rid of Newman and some guards through cartoonish effects. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the mask's powers fit the person that the mask was on? Didn't it make sense that Jim Carrey's mask persona was cartoonish because Ipkiss himself was a fan of Tex Avery cartoons? You never saw Dorian Tyrell turn into a cartoon when he had the mask on. He was some kind of Frankenstein monster. Well, it doesn't matter. The writers probably thought, hey, Jim Carrey was funny when he had the mask on, so let's make every single mask-related character act as zany as him. The credits continue to roll when this name pops up. Mary E. Vogt. She's the costume designer of this film, who was nominated for her work on Batman Returns and won an award for Hocus Pocus. That's great and all, but the only thing I'm taking away from this is that I might have a relative who actually worked on this film. Will that sway my judgment on the film? No, not in the slightest. Anyway, a dog finds the real mask, coincidentally the same type of dog Stanley Ipkiss had, and the mask is taken to the cartoonish home of Jamie Kennedy. Yeah, I know he has a name, but there's honestly no character, it's just Jamie Kennedy. He is a man-child who is afraid to be a father, and also be funny for the people who paid to see him in this colorful movie! Something you'll notice very quickly about this film is the style. Everything is extremely bright and colorful, and way too cartoonish. I think the director is trying to be Tim Burton mixed with that horrible Cat in the Hat movie that came out before this. This is the same director of Cats and Dogs, and it's really sad to say that Cats and Dogs is more competent than Son of the Goddamn Mask! Jamie Kennedy works as a tour guide at an animation studio that's run by Steven I'm Too Good to Be in This Movie Right. Jamie dreams of being a cartoonist, but is too much of an awkward person. Wait, are we talking about the character or Jamie Kennedy himself? He's invited to go to a Halloween party, but his only costume is the mask, which of course he puts on and transforms into a less talented Jim Carrey. This horrifying and plastic creation is Jamie Kennedy's rendition of the mask. And I can't tell if the makeup is restricting his face, or Jamie Kennedy is just that boring. But that's not my main issue with this. My main issue is just how much the people in this scene are willing to accept the mask's powers. Yeah, people tolerated Jim Carrey's powers a lot as well, but the things that Jamie Kennedy does seems to be even more extreme. I can't really explain what makes it work in the first one and not in this one, but I think it's because Carrey's mask used it sparingly. He did it, but not to the extent of Kennedy. I don't know, maybe the film is already driving me crazy. Anyway, Kennedy performs an extremely white rap musical number, and then leaves the party to have sex with his wife. And I can only imagine what mask sex is like. Stephen Wright was at the party and tells Kennedy he wants him to write a show based on his mask character. But because Kennedy doesn't have much talent, you decide if I'm referring to his character or not. He decides he needs the mask, but discovers it's lost. How can this day get any worse? His wife is pregnant, and what follows for the rest of the movie are non-stop baby jokes. Scratch that. Baby mask and dog jokes. The baby is born and has the powers of the mask. So Loki's father Odin is pissed and... Wait a minute. That voice. What is Bob Hoskins doing in this movie? Bob! Why? What happened to you? Yeah, he was in a scene earlier that had some really cool imagery, but I wasn't paying attention. I was in a coma during that scene. Anyway, Odin's pissed that Loki has not found the mask and is also upset that the baby is born, and tells Loki that if he finds the baby, he's sure to find a worse movie. Find the mask. Jamie Kennedy's wife, again I know she has a name but I don't care, has to leave for work, so Kennedy is forced to stay with the baby and work at home, and both of them don't like that. I don't really know why the baby hates Kennedy, but to be fair, I kind of do too. The baby plans on driving Kennedy crazy, and the dog decides that it was funny when Milo wore the mask in the first movie, so he's going to also. And I kid you not, when the dog puts on the mask, it actually says, "Smokin'." You know, just like that line from that better Jim Carrey movie, Mr. Popper's Penguins. The dog plans on being a Tex Avery cartoon because of the first movie, and kill the baby. Meanwhile, Loki is undergoing a whole bunch of disguises that look like costumes for reject Dr. Seuss movies to sneak into houses and find the baby. All they succeed in doing is highlight how much this film has wasted Alan Cummings. He is so much better than this movie deserves. The baby starts his reign of nightmare-inducing terror by turning into this CGI monstrosity and pulling off Looney Tunes shenanigans. Baby jokes abound, Jamie Kennedy acts crazy, and the dog tries to kill the baby. And I will give the movie this. If there was a Looney Tunes short about a dog trying to kill a baby so that it can have the sole attention of the father, I would be okay with that. That being said, the rest of this movie is happening, so I really don't care that it's happening here. Also, the mask works in the morning now. Because we were drunk when we watched the first one, and barely remember anything about it. Loki makes it to the house, and even though he sees all this destruction in the house, he doesn't think that this baby is the one he's looking for. Oh, and then there's a piss joke that's basically the ejaculation joke from Scary Movie. Ha! 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 Kennedy decides to take the baby to the hospital, and Loki realizes, maybe this is the baby I'm looking for. Loki tells Kennedy the situation, but when Kennedy tells Loki he doesn't have the mask, Loki tries to kill him. And for some reason, the baby decides he now wants to save his dad! I don't care anymore. I really don't care anymore. I don't even care if the next scene doesn't make any sense. Guess what? The next scene doesn't make any sense! Odin takes control of Kennedy and tells Loki that since he has failed, Odin is going to take away his powers. Even though Odin is holding the frickin' baby! Loki loses his powers and Kennedy loses his job for not being prepared for his presentation. But at least the baby now likes Kennedy! Loki sneaks into Kennedy's house, summons Odin, and convinces him to give Loki his powers back in exchange for getting the mask in 1 hour, yada yada yada. Loki makes this threat to Kennedy and takes the frickin' baby. Mom comes home, Kennedy tells her what's happened, and they convince the dog to give Kennedy the mask. Kennedy goes to trade the mask over for the baby, but Loki changes his mind, wanting to keep both the mask and the baby, since he now wants a friend. But through the power of dog biting balls joke, Kennedy gets the mask and chases Loki in a pretty awesome looking car. I'll admit it, this car looks pretty cool. But who cares, it's not in the film that long. Randy and the guy from Cabaret fight, but decide that since they are equally matched in powers, the baby should choose. At first, the baby is gonna pick the more likable character, but through the power of bullshit, the baby picks Kennedy without his mask. Odin comes down to scold Loki, but through the power of the almighty Jamie Kennedy, father and son are reunited. This whole ordeal inspires Kennedy to write a show about my idea of the dog and baby competing for dad's attention, resulting in Kennedy unrealistically getting his job back. Yeah, after all the crap that's happened in this movie, this is where I think the movie is unrealistic. But the show takes off. Kennedy's wife is pregnant, and the baby winks at the camera. The frickin' Ed. Tim Avery. That's what his name was, Tim Avery. Just like Tex Avery, I get. Oh, and the dog's name was Otis, just like Milo and Otis, because Milo was the name of the dog from the first one. Otis named the dog. That's really funny. That's really funny, you know that? That's really funny. This movie is really... Goddamn this movie! This film is a nightmare. The acting ranges from flat to over the top, the effects are terrible, the story is a joke, the makeup is atrocious, I can't stand the directing, it has so little to do with the first film, and not one joke lands. It's not really even funny in a so bad it's good way. It's just a terrible, terrible movie. And you know what's the worst thing? This wasn't even supposed to be a mask movie. No joke. On IMDb, it's revealed that the screenwriter wrote the film Baby Formula, and it was supposed to be aimed at a more adult audience. So after all these years of talks of making a mask sequel, and they just took a pre-existing script, tinkered it here and there, and that was it? The time has come. I've suffered 12 years of this agonizing film's existence, and something must be done. Smokin'! How do? Batter up! And for extra measure, backing up, backing up, backing up. 50th episode.